My beloved, sit with me a while. Let your spirit be still. Because what I am about to say carries weight, not the weight of punishment, but the weight of truth. There comes a time in every life when the soul must look into its own mirror. Not the mirror on the wall, but the mirror that remembers every choice, every intention, every moment we lifted another soul, or crushed one beneath our heel. And though I do not stand as your judge, nor anyone as this judge, I stand as a reminder that life is brief, eternity is long, and the decisions you make write the story your soul will carry beyond the grave. So listen closely, child of God, to 8 warning signs that your soul may be drifting toward destruction, not because you are cursed, not because you are condemned, but because you are loved enough to be called back home. My dear one, let us walk slowly together through this truth, for it is not a thing to rush through as though it were a grocery list or a passing thought. It is the quiet, steady drumbeat of the soul calling you back to yourself. When I speak of self-reflection, I speak of the art of sitting with the whole of who you are, the bruised places, the shining places, the glorious triumphs, and the trembling failures, and daring to look without flinching. It is the oldest, bravest ritual a human being can perform, and yet it is the most neglected. For many people, the loudness of the world has replaced the stillness of their spirit. They have forgotten how to listen to that whisper inside, the whisper that says, you are not what you pretend to be, you are not what you fear you are. Come see yourself again. That whisper is what salvation sounds like in its earliest form. But ignoring that whisper day after day is what sets a soul adrift without anchor or compass. Self-reflection, my love, is not about condemning yourself. No, it is not about dragging your mistakes into the spotlight and beating your own spirit with them. Self-reflection is a sacred pause. It is the willingness to sit with your truth the way you would sit with a friend who has come to you in tears, gently, patiently, without judgment. It is the moment in which you say, I want to know myself honestly so I can grow honestly. There are people who go their entire lives avoiding themselves. They fill their houses with noise, their schedules with distraction, their hearts with numbness, anything, to avoid hearing the truth echoing inside them. But darling, you cannot outrun your own soul. You may distract it for a season, silence it for a night, drown it for a moment. But when the world grows quiet and the lights go out, your soul pulls up a chair beside you and asks, are you ready now? To reflect on yourself is to brave your own truth, and it takes a warrior's courage to do so. The truth is not always sweet. Sometimes it walks in like an uninvited guest, tracking mud across your clean floors, breathing heavy and inconvenient. But even then, truth is a teacher. It will break your illusions, yes, but it will never break you. It will confront your pride, yes, but it will also awaken your humility. It will show you the places you've fallen short, yes, but it will also show you the places you are capable of rising far higher than you ever imagined. You see, the soul cannot grow inside a lie. It cannot flourish in denial. It cannot ascend in darkness. Self-reflection is the candle you light inside your own spirit, so you can finally see what is growing there. And when you see clearly, you can choose wisely. You can choose healing over hurt, truth over comfort, discipline over indulgence, compassion over cruelty, and righteousness over recklessness. Many people walk toward destruction not because they are wicked, but because they are unexamined. They do not know the path they are on because they do not know the person walking it. They do not understand their own motivations, their own wounds, their own temptations, their own patterns. They simply keep repeating yesterday, carrying it like a chain into tomorrow. Their soul is calling them inward, but they keep running outward. And that running, that refusal to look inward, is one of the quietest, deadliest dangers of spiritual life. When you reflect deeply and sincerely, you begin to hear the small alarms your conscience sends. You begin to feel when something is off, when something is wrong, when something in your spirit is drifting away from the light. You begin to recognize pride before it hardens, anger before it poisons, jealousy before it blinds, resentment before it festers, and temptation before it conquers. Reflection turns a whisper into a command. Turn back, redirect, reconsider. It saves you from the destruction that grows silently inside unchecked thoughts and unguarded choices. And reflection is not only about catching the wrong, it is also about celebrating the right. When you reflect, you begin to see your own goodness shining in places you once overlooked. You notice the kindness you offered when no one was watching, the forgiveness you extended when it felt impossible, the growth you fought for when nobody applauded. You begin to recognize your own becoming, the small resurrections your spirit has undergone, the quiet courage that rises in you like morning light. You realize you are not who you were last year, last month, or even last night. You are a soul in progress, a masterpiece under construction. Self-reflection turns life into a classroom where every mistake becomes a lesson, every success becomes a guide, and every struggle becomes a teacher. Without reflection, you repeat. With reflection, you rise. And let me tell you something softly, sweetly, but truthfully. God does not ask for perfection, but God does ask for awareness. Divinity dances with honesty, not denial. Heaven opens its doors to the humble, not the hardened. Judgment does not fall harshly on the one who stumbled, but on the one who refused to admit they stumbled at all. Reflection is the key that keeps you awake, alive, aware, aligned. It is the spiritual breath we must take if we ever hope to walk in the light with confidence. So take the time, my beloved. Sit with yourself. Listen to yourself. Ask yourself, where is my soul right now? Where is it heading? What is it becoming? For the one courageous enough to answer those questions is already halfway saved. Let me lean in close and tell you something that time has carved into the bones of every wise soul who has walked this earth. Warnings are gifts. They are not the thunder meant to frighten you, nor the lightning meant to strike you. They are the soft tap of God's knuckles on the door of your spirit, whispering, "Wake up, beloved. There is still time." And when I speak of these 8 warning signs, I do not speak of curses. I do not speak of condemnation, and I certainly do not speak of doom. No, I speak of grace in its working clothes. People often tremble at the mention of judgment and hell, as though they are forces lurking in the shadows waiting to swallow them whole. But a warning is not a sentence. A warning is a lifeline. When the soul begins drifting away from the truth, heaven sends signs the way a mother calls out to her wandering child, not with anger but with aching love. You see, each warning sign is a lantern lit along the path of your journey. Some shine softly, asking you gently to slow down and reconsider. Others shine fiercely, declaring, "This road you're on will break you if you keep walking." But not a single one is designed to shame you. Shame paralyzes. Warnings awaken. And any voice that awakens you back to life, back to purpose, back to God, that voice is a healing, even if it stings. Too often, people see these spiritual signs and shrug them off as inconveniences or coincidences. They say, "I'll deal with that later," or "I'm fine," or "This doesn't apply to me." They close their eyes to the cracks in their character, the slipping of their morals, the dimming of their compassion. But the soul always knows when it is drifting away from the light. It always knows when something is unraveling within. And heaven, in its mercy, never lets a soul drift without sending a call to return. Now listen to me gently. Acknowledging a warning sign does not make you a failure. It makes you a fighter. Only a courageous heart can look at itself and say, "This is not who I want to be. This is not who God made me to be. Something must change." That recognition alone is the beginning of redemption. There are people walking around every day pretending that all is well inside them, but deep down they hear the quiet sirens of their conscience. They feel the gentle tug pulling them back toward humility, back toward forgiveness, back toward kindness, back toward honesty. And that tug is not judgment, it is love. It is divine intervention dressed in everyday clothing. God does not send warning signs to frighten you about death. God sends them to restore the direction of your life. These signs are invitations to reflect, to repent, to realign your heart with what is holy, healing, and hopeful. Do not imagine, not for a moment, that heaven is eager to watch anyone fall. No, my love, heaven is eager to watch you rise, and every warning sign is placed in your path to help you stand taller, live wiser, and walk straighter. Imagine a traveler walking toward a cliff in the dark. The signs along the road, the flashing lights, the barriers, the arrows, they do not condemn the traveler. They protect him. They shield him from a danger he cannot yet see. And even if he has wandered far, even if his steps have strayed from the safe path, the warnings are reminders that there is still time to turn around. That is what these 8 signs are. They are spiritual signals meant to keep your soul from slipping into a place of no return. They are calls to remember who you were created to be. They are messages written in holy ink, urging you not toward fear but toward freedom. Because it is not the falling that destroys a person. It is the refusal to rise. It is not the sin that seals a destiny. It is the stubbornness that insists on clinging to it. A warning sign is God's way of saying, choose life, choose change, choose me. There are moments in life when the mirror of the soul becomes difficult to face. Pride tells you you're fine. Ego tells you you don't need help. Habit tells you to continue on. But the warning signs break through that illusion. They interrupt your spiritual sleep. They remind you that every step you take forms the road you will one day answer for. But hear this truth clearly. The presence of a warning means that hope is still alive. A condemned soul receives no warning, only a drifting soul does. Only a soul loved enough to be redirected, corrected, protected. Warnings are signs of God's patience, not God's anger. They are evidence that the door of mercy has not closed, that the gates of forgiveness remain open, that the heart of heaven is still reaching for yours. So do not be afraid when you recognize a warning sign in your life. Be grateful. It means God has His eye on you. It means the Spirit is still speaking to you. It means your heart is still soft enough to feel the pull of truth. It means you are not lost. You are being led. And let me tell you, with all the gentleness I have learned from life, the moment you respond to that warning, the moment you make even the smallest step toward change, heaven rejoices. Angels applaud. Grace embraces you like a long-lost friend. A single decision to return can rewrite an entire destiny. So let the warning signs be your teachers, not your tormentors. Let them open your eyes, not close your spirit. Let them guide you back into alignment with the life you were meant to live. For these signs do not predict your end. They proclaim your chance to begin again. My dear soul, lean in close and hear this truth wrapped in the softness of wisdom. Every choice you make, every word you speak, every thought you cradle in the quiet corners of your mind is shaping the road beneath your feet. Destiny is not a lightning strike that falls without warning. It is a long, winding echo of the daily decisions we make. And eternity, that vast and endless realm beyond breath, is quietly being sculpted by the way we live while breath still lives in us. You see, we live in a world where people often imagine that consequences arrive like strangers, unexpected, uninvited, unconnected. But nothing in the spiritual world arrives without having been summoned by our actions. The seeds we plant become the forests we walk through. The words we release become the winds that either carry us forward or blow us backward. The intentions of the heart, oh, those secret, silent intentions, become the architects of our eternal story. Every sunrise gives you a choice to step toward light or turn toward shadow. And while heaven does not demand perfection from you, heaven does ask for intention, awareness, and alignment. You cannot serve cruelty by day and expect peace to greet you by night. You cannot walk proudly over the suffering of others and expect compassion to carry your soul into eternity. Every step leaves a print, and every print leads somewhere. There is a divine arithmetic woven into the fabric of life. What you choose chooses you back. Choose bitterness long enough, and bitterness becomes the lens through which you see the world. Choose greed long enough, and generosity becomes a language you can no longer understand. Choose falsehood long enough, and truth becomes a distant whisper you strain to hear. But choose compassion, and compassion multiplies. Choose righteousness, and righteousness builds a shelter over your spirit. Choose mercy, and mercy prepares a place for you beyond this life. We like to imagine that heaven and hell are distant places, unreachable until death lifts the veil. But in truth, my dear heart, we build the doorways long before we ever step through them. A heart heavy with hate cannot rise easily to the light. A soul soaked in selfishness cannot suddenly breathe freely in the realms of love. Life is the rehearsal for eternity. What you practice, you will perfect. What you perfect, you will carry beyond your final breath. Every moment you open your hand to help another, you are shaping eternity. Every time you swallow your pride to make peace, you are shaping eternity. Every time you resist the pull of temptation and walk instead toward holiness, you are fortifying a destiny that will one day embrace you. And every time you ignore the tug of conscience, silence the whisper of truth, or turn your back on the path of righteousness, you are shaping eternity in another direction. It is not the grand gestures alone that matter. Oh no, my love. It is the small, ordinary, unseen choices that build a life, that carve a character, that decide a destiny. A kind word spoken when no applause waits. A decision to forgive though the wound still aches. A refusal to lie even when truth costs something. A moment of patience when anger begs to be unleashed. These are the quiet bricks that build the mansion of your soul. People often say, no one sees what I do when I'm alone. But the universe sees, God sees. And most importantly, you see. And that seeing is what shapes you. Your character is not formed in the spotlight, it is formed in the shadows. What you choose when no one is watching is the truest measure of your soul. The spiritual laws do not bend for convenience. They do not adjust themselves to comfort you. A heart unguarded will drift. A spirit unchecked will weaken. A life unexamined will harden. But a soul that pays attention, that considers its ways, that takes responsibility for its decisions, that soul grows strong. That soul walks steadily. That soul develops roots that reach so deep into truth that no storm can tear them free. I tell you, beloved, your life is speaking long before you ever reach the gates of eternity. Your choices are writing a letter to heaven, and heaven will read it exactly as it is written. But here is the beauty of divine grace. The pen is still in your hand. As long as breath remains, the story can change, the path can shift, the ending can be rewritten. Do not be fooled into thinking that a single misstep seals your fate. No, it is the direction of your steps that matters. If you fall, rise. If you stumble, steady yourself. If you wander, return. Every day contains an invitation to turn toward the good, the right, the holy. And God, in infinite mercy, honors every sincere turning, every humble correction, every honest repentance. Your moral and spiritual choices are not isolated incidents. They are threads weaving the tapestry of your eternal home. What kind of tapestry are you weaving? One of compassion or cruelty? One of truth or deception? One of humility or pride? One of love or indifference? For your eternity is not waiting to surprise you. It is waiting to receive the person you chose to become. And if you choose wisely, choose tenderly, choose courageously, you will find that eternity opens its doors, not with fear but with welcome. So let your choices be deliberate. Let your morals be steadfast. Let your spirit be attentive. And let your life be a beautiful offering to the one who gave it to you. For the destiny you walk into is shaped by the footsteps you take today. My beloved, come sit with me in the soft light of understanding, for this truth deserves to be unwrapped slowly, gently, like a fragile gift placed in your hands by God Himself. It is the truth that no matter how far you have walked into the storm, no matter how deep you have fallen into the pit, no matter how tangled your life has become in the vines of regret, it is never too late to turn around. Never too late to choose the better path. Never too late to lift your eyes, your heart, your trembling soul toward a new beginning. There are people who believe their mistakes have written their final chapter. People who think one wrong turn has sealed their fate. People who imagine that because they slipped into darkness, the light has stopped searching for them. Oh, but what a lie despair tells! For God does not abandon His children in the wilderness. The shepherd does not forsake the sheep because it wandered. The potter does not throw away the clay because the shape collapsed in his hands. No, instead he molds again. He reshapes. He renews. He restores. You must hear me clearly. The presence of breath in your lungs means the presence of hope in your story. As long as your heart beats, heaven has not closed its door. The road of redemption may be steep, but it is always open. And the very fact that you feel the desire to turn, to correct, to rise again, that desire is proof that God is not done with you. I have learned in this life, in my own trembling journey of triumphs and failures, that the soul is not ruined by a fall. The ruin comes only when we decide to stay down. Falling is human, but rising is divine. Rising is your soul saying, I am not finished yet. I may be bruised, but I am not broken. I may be weary, but I am not wasted. I may be flawed, but I am still favored. The beauty of grace is that it does not require perfection, only willingness. Grace does not wait for you to become holy before it holds out its hand. Grace offers itself to the trembling, the ashamed, the guilty, the lost. Grace walks into the prison of your past and unlocks the door, whispering, come, walk with me into something new. And hear me, dear one, because this is sacred. God never measures you by where you have been. God measures you by where you choose to go now. A single sincere step toward righteousness carries more weight in heaven than 1,000 steps taken carelessly in the past. One tear of repentance can wash away years of wandering. One moment of awakening can redirect an entire lifetime. There are people who fear their sins like shadows that grow larger in the dark. They fear that turning to God now would be too little, too late. But God is not a clock ticking impatiently. God is not a judge waiting angrily. God is a father watching the road, looking for the faint outline of his child returning home. And the moment he sees you turn, even if the steps are small, even if the steps are shaky, he runs to you. He runs, not walks. You must understand, beloved, that transformation is not reserved for the perfect. It is reserved for the willing. Even in the quiet corners of your shame, God can plant new beginnings. Even in the ruins of your choices, he can build a cathedral of purpose. Even in the ashes of your failures, he can breathe the breath of resurrection. Every saint had a past. Every prodigal had a moment of return. Every masterpiece began as a mess in the artist's hands. There is no soul so twisted that God cannot straighten it. No heart so hardened that God cannot soften it. No life so tangled that God cannot untangle it. The only truly lost person is the one who refuses to be found. And let me say this gently, the devil's greatest trick is not temptation, it is hopelessness. If he can convince you that you are too far gone, too damaged, too guilty, too late, then he has won without even lifting a hand. But if you can gather the courage to whisper, even in your darkest moment, Lord, I want to try again, then heaven explodes with light. The enemy trembles, the angels rejoice, and the chains begin to fall. Do not imagine, my dear heart, that change comes all at once. Sometimes the soul rises slowly, like dawn creeping over the horizon. Sometimes repentance is a journey, not a moment. Sometimes healing comes drop by drop, not flood by flood. But every small step is holy, every effort is honored, every attempt is seen. And do not worry if you stumble during your return. The path back to righteousness is rarely straight. Sometimes your feet will falter. Sometimes old habits will whisper your name. But the important thing is that you keep turning toward the light. You keep leaning toward God. You keep choosing the road that leads you home. For heaven does not count your missteps, only your direction. So I say to you, with all the power of love, all the authority of truth, all the tenderness of God's own heart, you are not beyond saving, you are not beyond mercy. You are not beyond mercy. You are not beyond change. Your story is still being written. Your destiny is still unfolding. Your soul is still capable of rising into brilliance. And if you dare to take hold of hope, even just a handful, you will discover that the God who writes in stars and paints in sunrise colors has been waiting patiently to rewrite your life in grace. My beloved, let me speak to you with the gentleness of a grandmother brushing the hair of a child she loves, and with the firmness of a prophet standing on a mountain calling souls back to their purpose. There is a truth as old as time and as fresh as sunrise. You do not have to fear judgment if you live with awareness, humility, and intention. Judgment should not arrive like a thief in the night to those who have spent their days tending to the garden of their soul. Instead, it comes as a continuation of the life they have already been living, a revealing, not a surprise. People tremble at the thought of judgment because they have allowed life to lull them into spiritual sleep. They move from day to day, breath to breath, without ever stopping to ask, am I living as the person God intended? Am I walking in love? Am I creating peace? Am I building bridges or burning them? Am I becoming light or shadow? But when you live awake, truly awake, judgment loses its power to frighten you. It becomes not a threat, but a homecoming. A person who has lived in truth does not fear the moment truth speaks. A person who has walked with compassion does not fear the moment. Compassion is measured. A heart that has sought righteousness does not fear the moment righteousness calls its name. Fear rises only in those corners where we have refused to look, where we have refused to grow, where we have refused to surrender ourselves to the soul's own evolution. You must understand, my dear one, that judgment is not God trying to catch you slipping. It is God revealing what you have become. It is the unveiling of your choices, the harvest of your seeds, the reflection of your own growth. And if you have tended to your inner life, if you have cared for your character the way a gardener watches over his flowers, then judgment is not a moment of terror. It is a moment of clarity, a moment of arrival. Think of a student who has studied with diligence, with humility, with passion. When exam day comes, she walks into the room not trembling with dread, but holding the quiet peace of preparation. She does not fear the test because she has already lived the answers. In the same way, the soul that has lived in alignment with God does not flinch at the thought of standing before Him. Judgment becomes frightening only when we have not prepared our hearts, when we have ignored the whispers of conscience, when we have silenced the warnings of our spirit, when we have wandered far from the truth we know. The unprepared soul stands trembling because it has lived carelessly, not thoughtfully. It has drifted instead of steered. It has reacted instead of chosen. But the prepared soul, oh, the prepared soul walks differently. It moves through life with intention. It speaks with purpose. It loves with depth. It forgives with courage. It stands with humility. And because of that, judgment does not approach as a storm, but as a sunrise. You must also know that preparation is not perfection. No human being will ever walk this earth without flaw or stumble. But preparation is a posture of the heart. It is the daily decision to turn toward goodness, to lean toward God, to correct oneself, to rise again after falling. It is the willingness to be shaped, broken open, emptied of pride, and refilled with grace. The soul that prepares for judgment does not wait for a special day to start living right. It begins now. It begins today. It begins in the small moments, in the way you treat a stranger, in the way you speak to your loved ones, in the way you respond when no one is watching. You cannot wait until the last breath to build the character you want to present before heaven. You must build it in the ordinary hours, the quiet choices, the secret corners of your life. When you walk in awareness, aware of your actions, aware of your intentions, aware of the sacredness of every day, you awaken your spiritual senses. You begin to feel when something is off. You begin to notice when your heart is slipping. You begin to catch pride before it grows heavy, envy before it festers, anger before it erupts. Awareness is the soul's alarm system, keeping you from drifting into spiritual danger. Humility, too, becomes your companion. A humble heart does not fear judgment because it has already judged itself honestly. It has looked at its flaws, confessed its weaknesses, asked for help, sought forgiveness. A humble person has nothing to hide, not from God, not from others, not even from themselves. Their life is open like a book placed willingly in the hands of its author. And then there is intention, the anchor of the prepared soul. Intention means living with purpose. It means choosing your words instead of spilling them. It means directing your thoughts instead of letting them roam wild. It means deciding the kind of person you want to be and adjusting your steps every day to match that vision. An intentional life does not drift. It directs itself toward heaven, one choice at a time. So my beloved, judgment is not something to dread if you live each day with wakefulness. If you stay humble in the sight of your Creator, if you live intentionally, shaping your life with the care of a sculptor shaping stone, you will not be shocked on that day because you will have lived in truth long before that day arrives.